The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent, joined by Addie Rich. Our podcast is dedicated to amplifying the voice of the disability community. I'm a polio survivor, and Addie?
And I have cerebral palsy. That's me.
Welcome back from the long weekend. How was your 4th of July weekend?
It was good. It was fun. It was nice. It was nice to, get off a little early and have an extra day to hang out and just do what you want and eat good food.
I was going to say, what was on the menu?
We just did hot dogs and I made like a 3-bean salad, and in my head, I meant to make a cake, but as we were talking off air, I had an allergic reaction to some stuff. So I spent a long time sleeping, much more than I wanted to.
For the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's like today, it's 100 degrees right now. I'm not going outside.
No.
So, although in my head I was like, yay, adventure. I mean, it was nice to not be obligated, but the sheet cake never got made. So, sometime in the future.
Yeah, I was going to say, there you got that to look forward to.
Exactly.
So
it was a setup.
100 in Atlanta. Right. What's the humidity like?
I don't know. I mean, it's quite hot. I literally open the door for the dog, turn around, shut it, wait for them by the window and let them in. But I mean, it's just not fun. And it's when I get up at 6:30, it's already in the 70s and it's humid. So
it does cool off a bit at night.
Yeah, to the 70s. So you need to wait. We typically wait till the evening. We'll go for a walk or something, because why fry yourself right now?
My brother lived in the Sacramento area for years.
Yeah.
And, it's gotten as high as 115 here where I live. And so I'm there. I go visit him during the summertime. And it got to be like 1 o'clock. And it was, blazing hot there. It gets hot there too. And I'm like, well, at least, this is kind of like the worst. It'll start to cool off after this. Yeah. He's like, no. He said it'll keep building till about 6. Till 6? Yeah. I mean, by 6, it's really cooling off here. And sure enough, And then, you go until midnight, 1 o'clock still. But then somehow there's this magic that happens. You get up in the morning and it's like 60 or 70 degrees. Somehow.
I know. That's the crazy thing about out there. Like, the humidity really holds the heat here, so it never really goes anywhere. It just lifts off the ground a bit and hangs out.
He says it's the delta, that they have that whole delta area. It kind of helps it cool with all the water.
Yeah, well, that's nice.
Yeah, but it waits till in the middle of the night.
For sure.
Very good. Yeah, I went to a friend's house and just, burgers
what did you
and
do?
Hanging out with them and watched a couple of baseball games. Good time. Yeah.
4th of July-ish. Now it really feels like summer. I think once you have 4th of July, for those of us that it doesn't really matter what season it is because we work.
Yeah. Yes.
No matter what. It's like once that holiday hits, it's a mental marker of like, okay, now we're on the downhill because we're in July. So.
Very nice. Very nice. And it's Disability Pride Month. So
it is.
We're going to go. And I discovered that we have a flag for that.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I did see you post that on our socials. I was like, there's a flag for everything.
and each one of those, different colors is for a different disability kind of type.
Okay, group.
Either mobility or, exactly.
Neat. So, well,
I'm not sure what all they are. But, and then of course, a lot of talk over the 4th of July weekend was the budget bill that passed. I'm trying to remain calm and all that, because people kind of just, it's the internet, so people can just put anything they want to up there. And
welcome to the internet.
And I've seen this post a couple of times from different people, that there's $880 billion going to be cut from Medicaid. And I'm like, well, that just, my critical thinking mind thinks that doesn't seem right. So I go and because just that amount. So I'm thinking,
that's a really big number.
Yeah, so I go Google what the annual budget is for Medicaid, and it's $854 billion. They're going to cut more than there actually is. They're just wiping out all of Medicaid.
It's just going to be non-existent. Yeah. It's just gone.
So then I have to remind myself, these are people that just go on and I don't know what their motivation is for just making that up, or did they hear it someplace and it's not right?
I mean, think about it, more often than not, people parrot what they feel like. They become passionate parrots.
Yeah.
Where truth can sometimes go missing, but
we're crazy me. I look at that number and go, that can't be right.
Yeah, right.
So hopefully everybody will be fine.
We'll breathe.
I know
all
there's
we can do, breathe and continue to move forward.
Yeah, and I know there's a few states that have a lawsuit against the changes that the last administration made to IEPs and the 504 and all that. So we'll see how that plays out. Look into it, and if it's not going the way you think it should, the best thing to do is contact your representative and
make a call.
Let your
Don't
opinion
get on
be
the
known.
internet. Make a call.
Exactly. We have power. We have power in our community. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What was the other thing? And I guess maybe talk of that kind of got me thinking about, and we talked a little bit about that before we came on, is that years ago when the internet got going, I kind of just did some research on polio. It was available
Why not?
easily,
It's a-
right? Yeah, why not?
It's a topic close to your heart.
Well, and then as I read this article, they're laying it out statistically, and I until that point in my life, and I must have been somewhere between 30 and 40. I'm thinking, you get polio, and this is one of the things that happens. You become a paraplegic. And that's just pretty much standard.
Right.
Well, no. No.
Yeah.
I kept getting into a little smaller and smaller until it was like a 0.1% of people get these kind of lasting effects. Most people recover and there's no problem.
Yeah.
So I did some research on those same statistics and put together a little blog, and I'm going to put on the website. So if you're interested in looking at that, check that out.
Well, you're special. We knew you were special anyways, but now statistics prove it.
Special, yeah, in some ways, right?
Right. Hey, you are a great beacon for the community, and if this didn't happen to you, you might not be a beacon for the community. So.
Well, that's a
sunny
nice
side of
spin
the
on
street.
That's a silver lining if I ever heard one. Thank you.
There you go.
So I want to thank Family Resource Network. I'm sitting here trying to read my own writing. Yeah, they were on last week. Great information.
Yes.
Right, couple of
passionate people.
Yeah.
Fun to hang out with.
Their kids are involved, so you could tell they were very.
Oh, for
passionate.
sure. Talk about a child of anybody's child. They'll tell you so much.
Yes. So good to have them on. They're on the website. If you liked what you heard and you want to get more information about the organization, they will definitely help you out. Today, we've got Juan Garibay. I've met him through the wheelchair sport groups at Rolling Start. He is now an executive at Rancho Los Amigos and their departments, and I've been there for 25-ish years, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and got a great story because he's also a member of our community, and he also works at Rancho Los Amigos, so we kind of get a 2-for-1 on this one. So we'll check out Aguiar Professional Training and be back. Hear all about one.
At Aguiar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Aguiar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Aguiar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
In the realm of tales untold, where every voice finds its home. Walk and Roll Live with Doug and Addie, where disability stories are vibrant. Walk and Roll Live, let's hear it unfold. Doug hosts, his warmth untold, from triumphs high to struggles low. Every story finds its glow, through laughter, tears, and heartfelt
as we continue our episode of Walk and Roll Live this week, this is a good one. We've got, it's kind of a 2-for-1. We've got a guest that we can hear his story, learn from his story, but he also works for an organization. So we'll be hearing about that story as well. So welcome to Walk and Roll Live.
So thank you again for having me, Doug. My name is Juan Garibay. I've been injured or living with a spinal cord injury for the last 32 years. I was shot when I was 20 years old. Had just had 6 weeks out of prison. I had just gotten out. And living that life caught up to me. Like I said, came out of prison, 20 years old, and 6 weeks later I get shot and wound up paralyzed. I come to Rancho to do my rehab, learn how to, adjust to a new life, right, from a sitting down position. Was here for 5 weeks and went back home. I learned everything I needed to learn, how to live a life with a disability, but didn't have the skills to change my life once I left the hospital. So I went back to the same thing that put me in the chair, and got caught up in the system after that, for selling dope, crack cocaine at the time, to put food on the table, put a roof over my head as well as my family at the time. And got my house raided, went to jail. I did 2 years out of 3. And it was during that time that when I was incarcerated where I really started focusing more on my life and how I wanted it to end and how I wanted to live my life, right, before that came, that conclusion of, life ending for you. So again, a lot of reflection those 2 years, and made a promise to myself that once I got out, that I was going to find ways and means to never come back to prison, regardless if I was going to be homeless or, living that kind of life where, just struggle, right? Even if I have that kind of life, I'm just going to try to make the best of it instead of trying to make a quick buck and then winding back in prison and, getting a longer sentence.
Yeah.
So lucky for me, man, during the time that I was incarcerated, I did have a significant other we're still together. She was my physical therapist. We hooked up just before I went to prison, meaning that we got together. We were boyfriend and girlfriend at that time. And she stood by me the whole time that I was in there. So when I got out of prison, I moved in with her, which it was a great opportunity for me to leave my life behind, right? Because it took me out of my neighborhood. Yeah. And doing that, one thing led to another. I started volunteering at Rancho Los Amigos hospital. Just try to, just trying to create opportunities for myself to change my life around. I didn't know what I was if it was possible or not, but I just knew that I had to try something different. So again, I started volunteering at Rancho here. Then within 1 year, man, I got the opportunity to work with the Rancho Research Institute for one of the department, which was Rehabilitation Engineering. And through that department, they actually offered me a scholarship to work with them for a year, like working 8 hours a week or so, So it wasn't that many hours, but it was a great opportunity for me to find ways and to surround myself with people that were doing positive things or had a different lifestyle than the one that I came out of,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And from there, man, a year went by. I worked with them on different kind of projects. At that time, I was working with them on this project called the HERE project, which stands for Hands-On Experience and Rehabilitation Engineering. And it was a program that was actually based out of Cal State LA, where we actually took, engineer students from sophomore, freshmen, and seniors that were interested in the field and introducing them to other people with disabilities and having them create projects or products that would help people with disabilities and improve their quality of life. So that's how I got my feet wet with the rehab engineering, by working and being a mentor for some of these students. And from there, it just kind of snowballed from, a year later, I got offered a part-time job. Then by 2001, I was working full-time here at Rancho Research, working for the rehab engineering department. And the same program, we had that program for 5 years, from 2000 to 2005. Also, with that program came the outreach program, which was called the HERO program, Hands-On Experience Rehabilitation Engineering Outreach, where we went into the middle schools to introduce kids to this field, right? And, also stem away from gang culture, from all the negativity that they see in the community. Yeah. And hopefully, hopefully planting the seeds for them to think about, a future and going to college and, pursuing a career, whatever the career might have been, right? But that was our goal, to plant the seed for them to pursue, a better quality of life, regardless of your surrounding and your environment. And 25 years, I'm still here working for Rancho Research Institute. Now I'm the program manager for the Rancho Violence Recovery and Prevention Program, which actually works with survivors of violence that come to Rancho and connecting those survivors of violence to resources that are life savings for some of them. Most of the clients that work with us or actually are in the program are all of them, a big majority of them are actually, ex-gang members, people that are coming out of prison, people that just got caught up in their neighborhood, getting shot. Come here and we work with them. We connect them to services that'll make a big impact in their life, from victims of crime, Social Security, going back to school, connect them to permanent rehab for going back to school, returning to school, and pursuing a career. And we have a few clients that have been successful enough to do that, go back to school and pursue a career, whether it's in counseling, engineering, other type of fields,
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, that's a great start, for our conversation. And, we're so happy to have you here. And it's a unique opportunity to talk to someone that has all the different levels that you have and the different aspects of this. You've been through an injury, you've been through recovery, you've changed an entire lifestyle. You've formed a career for yourself. You say lucky, but I know that's some humility there, and you put a lot of work into it, and you had to make some life choices to make this even possible. So, congratulations on that. And then you're uniquely qualified, to be in an organization like that reaches out to, a very similar community that you were a part of. And so you can talk the talk and roll the roll.
We try,
Yeah.
It's a different generation nowadays. So sometimes okay, it's completely different than from what I grew up in, right? But just because of social media also, I think social media plays a big factor in the upbringing of kids now. They're very easily influenced from what they see on YouTube, TikTok, and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm blessed to be here, and I'm blessed to be here with you guys to share my story. And I think one of the things that helped me also change my lifestyle was actually being involved with wheelchair sports. That's something that I never did when I walked. I never played any sports, right? But once I got injured, one of the therapists here at Rancho, his name is Ken Cook, introduced me to wheelchair hockey.
Awesome.
I remember coming back for appointments here, follow-up appointments when I got out, and he was always, Juan, you need to come out. You need to come out and play sports. You need to give it a try. No. At first, I was, Ken. When I have time, I'll come back. And, it was one of those things, right?
I'll put that in my agenda for later.
Exactly,
Yeah.
But eventually, and again, my significant other was a big factor in that. Like, she took me, like, why don't you just give it a try, play sports, and see where that leads to. Maybe you'll find ways to be able to cope with better. Cope with your injury, cope with the disability factor a little bit better. You could be surrounded with other individuals that have been injured longer than you, so you could learn from them. And that was the case. I met a lot of great people that play wheelchair sports, from wheelchair hockey to basketball, skiing, and all that kind of stuff. And that was a big thing for me to play sports. I played sports for 15 years.
Amazing.
Played basketball, got to travel, throughout the United States for that. And it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It was an eye opener for me, just because of the exposure that I got to other people with disabilities, just living their life to the full, that like there was no disability,
Yeah.
So Juan,
yes.
Back in those days, that must have been a fairly unique program, right? I mean, you see it a lot now with different organizations. And do you know the history of Rancho Los Amigos, and was that designed? I mean, it's so effective on so many ways, like you say. I think it opens, especially the newly injured, to the possibilities in their life, because at that point you just think your life's over. All your dreams are over. You're not going to be able to get married or have families, those kinds of things. And then it kind of like,
factors work too,
Yeah, it works too. Yes. And it's, you start by saying, if I can do sports, what are the other things I could do? Right. Yeah. So, maybe you can talk about that being on the inside.
Yeah. So, the Rancho Wheelchair Sports Program has been around the leaves for as long as I've been here, like 30 something years. I've been in, like I said earlier, I've been in here 32 now. But I remember when they first started, right? It was just like you said, it was one of the few programs that were, that was actually built for people with disabilities like myself to find an avenue to help you cope with the disability factor, but also, you know, create opportunities to go back to school. I mean,
Yeah.
back in those days when we started playing hockey, wheelchair basketball, they didn't have scholarship programs, right?
Yeah.
To go to college for that. Now they have them. There's quite a few universities that have full ride scholarships for athletes with disability to play for their school and represent their school. And I mean, that wasn't available for us at the time because it was all new to us. It was new, even new to society and our community in general, right? Like that people with disabilities can actually have a productive life, can have
They could participate.
yeah, be inclusive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And have that. Now is pretty much, you see it everywhere, like you said, Doug. I mean, I mean, anybody that plays sports could, especially basketball. I mean, there's a great opportunity that if you're good enough, you get offered a full ride scholarship to go to school and get a career and play sports, and go to the Paralympics if you're that great,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think most of us back in those days paved the way for the generation that came after us for that, to take advantage of that.
And also to kind of touch on that part of their history too. I'm a polio survivor. So Rancho Los Amigos started with polio, and when they used to have the epidemics that would sweep through every summer. And once there was a cure found for polio, they kind of shifted gears. So what were the early days of rehabilitation? I mean, because it's probably, now it's just considered one of the gold standards of rehabilitation. But like in your day, what was it like as compared to today?
Well, I think back in those days, one of the biggest things were like patients were able to stay here at the hospital, and I guess at any hospital at that time, that their rehabilitation. I mean, the stay was a lot longer. Meaning that patients didn't get discharged they were kind of emotionally ready to be discharged. Now, unfortunately, because of budget cuts and the climate that we're in, have been, the rehab process is usually 3 weeks for somebody who's a paraplegic. And somebody who's a quadriplegic is usually three weeks, and those stays could be extended to a week for each, for para and quadriplegic. So sometimes we have paraplegics that are here for 3 weeks and then they go home, and the same with quadriplegics. They could be here for 3 weeks and they get a week extended. They're here for a month, but it's not enough. It's not enough time.
And Juan, is that based on recovery from the physical injuries?
Yeah,
right, and without really a whole lot of regard to where they are beyond those injuries, because
correct.
We know that there's so many life skills that you need
For
to
sure.
To cope with life, just transferring and all those things that
Yeah, and this is also the unique thing about it, right? Too, I think a lot of hospitals like ours are, understand that the stay is not long enough for some of our patients to really cope with their injury, right? So this is how these opportunities for programs like ours, like mine, were created for that reason, right? Okay, we can't keep the patient here because the insurance won't cover a lengthy stay here, but we could connect them to programs that could help them deal with some of the emotional part of recovery of their disability.
right.
We have our program. We have No Barriers program here at Rancho Los Amigos. We have the sports program. We have an adventure program that takes inpatients as well as outpatients out into the mountains, Big Bear skiing and that kind of stuff, right? Just to show them that life goes on. There's other opportunities that you could be involved in once you leave the hospital.
Well, it'd be like being a baby for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? That's impossible. It doesn't happen because you are a whole new human. This is a whole different body that you're in and things. So it's just crazy to think that the insurance is like, okay, cool. Well, that doesn't look like it on the outside. We'll see you later. Like you would never do that to a baby. Well, good. You're outside the mom. It's been 3 weeks.
You will hope
Bye.
not, right? You will hope the insurance will do that to a baby, but yeah, this is where we are now, unfortunately, when it comes to insurance and what they're willing to cover for us. But again, again, Rancho and as well as other hospitals have found ways to offset that by creating programs, mentoring programs that, patients can, hopefully connect with and learn from other patients that have been living with a spinal cord injury for, many years prior to them.
And there's an environment, I think, that has been helpful for other organizations to thrive, like the, Angel City Sports and SoCal Sports and
Triumph Foundation, right?
Triumph, absolutely.
Foundation. even Rolling started, right? I mean, with Richard,
Yeah.
being involved, Richard being part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, Richard says, I've known him since, man, since I first got hurt. He was
Yeah.
actually one of the first people that I met after I got out the hospital that, was already post-injured and was living his life. I mean, he was going to college and he motivated myself as well as another friend to go back to school,
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it shows you the power of community, like stepping out
Yeah.
and becoming a parent, because you telling like your early story. I did Teach for America right after college, so I taught in inner city Atlanta. So there's so much information just in that statement. So
Yeah.
them having community beyond that small community that tells them like, here's your choice.
Yeah.
Sell drugs, do this or whatever. Whereas like it was really important to me. I mean, I love teaching and fine, thank you for being able to teach English. But what I loved was to say you can get out of here. And so having things like you and programs that come out and say, hey, there's another option. Don't go back over there. Like if your world's this small, that's all you see. The blinders are on. So you need somebody to help remove them and say, hey, buddy, I not only am I just telling you this, I lived it.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I when you said the blinders, I was that individual when I was
Yeah.
in. I had those blinders. I didn't know anything outside of my neighborhood. It was
Yeah.
like,
You're like,
I
these
knew
6
that
blocks are the world. Yeah.
exactly. And it wasn't until after I got shot that the
Yeah.
world just opened up to me. That
Yeah.
like, wow, this has been here all this time.
You're like, holy cow. Yeah.
Like Universal City. Like when the first time that I went there, and I was like a kid, man. I was like, I'm looking around like, wow. I mean, this has been here all this time. I never knew
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm going back to my brother and telling him, bro, have you heard about Universal City? And he's like, where you been at, Juan? Like, where you been? It's been there, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I never knew that. I mean, because I was just caught up in that lifestyle.
Right.
But,
For sure.
So
but here I am. Here I am.
do you feel like it was like there was a one moment that it really clicked for you, or was it just a kind of a process where you finally
It was a
thought,
process.
Yeah.
It was a process for sure. But one of the biggest the process where it clicked for me when I was in prison.
Yeah.
Sitting there and just
It's a lot of time to think.
sitting there and looking around and looking at the people that the older people that I looked up to, right, and just seeing them also have that burned out look, like.
Yeah.
And then also, some of them were very, very honest, very straight up, like, this is not for you anymore. This is,
Yeah.
I've been, I remember this gentleman, Sharon, his name was Orlando. He had been at that time, he had been incarcerated for 15 years. He had 15 in life.
Yeah.
And he was like, Juan, you're a smart dude. You don't need to come back. You're already wheelchair bound and, take what you have. You have potential. I mean, whatever that potential might be, that's something for you to figure out what that's going to be, but you have potential to make a better life for yourself. This is not for you anymore, And then when he said that, and it hit me hard too, because again, this is somebody that I respect, that I looked up to, and he's telling me that this is not for me,
Yeah.
This being caged up and, having somebody else run your program was not the thing that I wanted at the end,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you hate to say it and be trite about it, but it's like 3 strikes, you're out. First, you got sat down. Second, you got sent away. And now what are you going to do for number 3? And that's kind of probably the universe met you in the middle and said, yo, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, man, those are the things that helped me, as well as, the people that I surrounded myself after I got out, from Rancho Research Institute, from the sports program. For some of my friends that were also wheelchair bound, that were able to change their life around too. I mean, I have friends now that are HM members and now they're teachers. Teaching at East LA College. Some of them are counselors. Others are social workers. Stuff like that.
Being shown a different side of your value, right? Like that a lot of people don't see, because to the neighborhood you're valuable for very few things, and so
yeah, very true.
Usually we get to this more towards the end of the interview when we're wrapping up, and it's just no. What I mean is right now with what you're saying, it's so important that, and we say this every interview, it seems like, right, Addie, is that what advice would you give? And it's getting connected with the community, with those kinds of people that touched your lives at the right moment to say the right things when your mind was open to it. Right, you were already thinking that direction.
Yeah, that's you have to be open to receive. It can be said 6,075,000 ways.
Very true. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like now, if when you're working with these young men, that have similar backgrounds as yourself. How does that uniquely qualify you to, and you probably have a much, better success rate, right? Having been there.
To some extent, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
You're the guy now they respect.
Yeah, I think what it is like you're saying, right? I mean, when I roll in, they see somebody they could recognize, even though they might not know me, right? Because they're like, okay, well, this guy looks like me, and he's coming in looking fresh. He doesn't look like somebody that you wouldn't look up to, right? It's like, he's coming in. You carry yourself well, you speak well when you're talking to them, right? And you talk about the business that need to be talked about, which is again, resources that are going to help you improve your quality of life and make this transition of from the hospital back to community a lot safer, and then growing from there. Obviously, the things that you did prior to you getting here were not good, because this is
we're not ideal.
Exactly. They didn't work out for you, so maybe this is the time to really reflect on your life, and the choices you have made up until this point, and ask yourself, well, what better choices am I going to make moving forward? And obviously also learning to take responsibility for those choices. Yeah. You can't blame community and society and other people from holding us down. There's obstacles, right? Everybody faces those obstacles, but at the end of the day, it's about the knowledge that you have to be able to erase those obstacles. So if you have very limited knowledge, get self-educated. Get plugged in with people that want to help you, that are giving you knowledge. So when you do come across these obstacles, you have more knowledge to make better decisions and how to get around that and how to break through them.
Yeah. And any kind of change for anybody is very difficult, and you stumble a few times. So I'm sure you give them grace, and if they stumble, you dust them off and say, we got to go back at it.
And that's part of life, right? I mean, all of us stumble, all of us fall, and we get back up, and it's like, as we get back up, we're getting back up stronger. We're getting up, and they're like, okay, this won't happen again because now I know how to avoid this pitfall. So it's normal to fall, but just don't stay down there. Get back up and go at it again. You're gonna be better the second time around, the third time around.
Yeah. Learning a little bit each step, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the research, the spinal cord injury model system. Tell us about that.
So that's actually the spinal injury model system that has been here at Rancho for the last 35 years. So what that project is all about is actually just following people on this recovery of spinal cord injury, right? Being in contact with them every 5 years, asking them implemented surveys and how life is changing around their disability. So that way, when this information is gathered, it's actually sent to Alabama, where they have our big database there, and these are the people that actually analyze all these surveys, come up with ideas for government to change, to make life a lot better for us. And again, it's been here for the last 35 years, and I hope that it's going to be here for the next 35 years. Where again, we're tracking individuals and asking these questions that are important to know. What are some of the trends that are happening with the community? Disability community, what can we make better? And this is, I think, one of the ways that you're able to capture that information in real time, to make better improvements as we continue to grow and evolve as a community.
Yeah, policy and awareness and all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we haven't really dived into this too much on Walk and Roll Live, because we don't want to get too political, but we definitely are watching, what's going to happen with the new bill and what may happen to benefits for our community.
Pretty scary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as an organization, is there strategies that maybe can help all of us, have our voice heard?
I think that's the biggest thing, right? Calling our councilmen, congressmen, senators, and making our voice heard about that, right? Because I mean, how fair is that 11 million people could lose their benefits with this new bill? It's crazy to think about that, man, that people will lose their benefits just because this beautiful bill that they're trying to pass that is going to benefit only the wealthy. And, come on. So, I think obviously there's work being done behind that to try to make people's voices heard. Yeah. And I hope, our government does hear us and, back off those cuts. I mean, again, it's not going to benefit anybody, man. Mm-hmm. If you get people uninsured, I mean, taxpayers are still going to pay for that, right? Yeah. Because people are still going to get sick. People are still going to get
the need is not going to go away.
Exactly. Pressures are still going to happen to those people that are uninsured. And guess who's going to pay for that? Taxpayers, us. So it doesn't make any sense to cut Medicaid. It does not. I don't see how that solves the problem of deficits.
And I think we all know, that really spend all of our days in this community that there's no luxuries. It's bare bones as it is, right?
For sure.
So to lose what's already bare bones, it really is going to impact the community. Absolutely.
It is, and they just don't see it because it doesn't happen to them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, is that saying, well, it's not happening to me, so it doesn't affect me, but it does.
Irrelevant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it will affect you.
It's going to affect your pocket, brother. You know what I mean? But your taxes is going to pay for, for this and this and that, So it does affect. It might not affect you directly with somebody that you love or to you directly, but it's going to affect your pocket,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. And, so also encourage the loved ones, not just people with disabilities, but the loved ones of disabilities, make your voice heard as well. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, people that are, people, family members are, of course, I believe they do speak up, but,
and of
but
course,
this definitely takes a village, man, to have your voice heard on this,
and being involved in Rolling Start. That's what we're all about is independence. So I would even hate to see that a cutback would cause somebody to lose their independence. Even if they still had some benefits, but if they're not living a full life, that would be tragic.
That would, man. So again, and that's one of the things that we try to, plant a seed in some of our clients here, right? Like, man, it's fine to depend on the system for now while while you're getting accustomed to your new life. But let's think about going back to work, to have that, to have that quality life. And the only way you can have a good quality life, at least in my opinion, one of the ways is being productive. And productive, be going back to work, feeling that independence, right? Like it feels great to get up and go to work and say, man, I work today, I work 40 hours a week. I'm a full-time employee. I have a career. A lot of us could do that, but we just don't know what we don't know at times.
Yeah.
So this is where we come in. Rolling Start, us, all these other programs that have been made for people with disabilities to motivate to, hey man, let's get back in the work field. Let's change things.
Yeah, and no doubt about it. It's hard and it's scary sometimes, and but it's
you're not alone anymore,
worth
right?
it so much, right? Yeah.
You're not alone. That's the beautiful thing nowadays. Maybe when we started 30 years, 40 years, it was a smaller group, but now it's a lot bigger. Now you have a bigger community that could support you, that could be there for you.
Yeah. And hopefully, we've at least, I know there's more work to be done, but the awareness has come to the level where employers will understand that their people in our community are going to be every bit as productive as anybody without a disability.
Exactly. There's actually studies out there that prove that people with disabilities are more committed. They rarely miss work because they're committed to the work. They're committed to their career, and obviously they want to prove and demonstrate that we're reliable for this kind of stuff. We can be counted on to show up to work and put 8 hours, 40 hours a week, and so forth. There's studies that prove that.
Don't tell him I said this, but Richard is a great example of that. Yeah, he is so enthusiastic and just does such a great job. Goes the extra mile, does all those things. But you didn't hear that from me.
Of course not.
It was the fly on the wall.
That's right. So, over the 25 years that you've been there?
Working here, yes.
Yeah. And so there's some moments that kind of stick out, some individuals that maybe there was a tough one to crack, but you got it, or
Oh man, there's quite a few. There's quite a few. Even from the days where we had the outreach program working with the middle school kids, high school kids, there's times that we're in the community, and from the community where some of these kids live at, and a few years ago we had a kid like that. He wasn't a kid when he came up to us at the time, right? He was more of a young adult, but he came up to my colleague, hey man, I remember you guys. Coming into our schools and talking about engineering and talking about careers, and just want to let you know, man, I'm actually in college now. I'm attending Fresno State. I'm not here visiting my family, but I want to let you know that I heard what you guys said, even though I maybe didn't act like it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I heard what you guys said, and some of the stuff you guys said, it stuck with me, And this was, I'm not saying that he gave us that we were the reason why they went to college, right? We were just a small factor of that.
Yeah.
Right.
That why he chose not to stay in that gang culture, chose not to stay in this community, but chose to get out of the community to be exposed to other things greater in his community, and then come back and give back to his community by the work that he was doing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. I taught
Right.
middle school. I taught sixth, seventh, and eighth.
Mm.
And later I went on to work at the city of Atlanta, and the mayor had a program where the kids could like intern for the summer and do little things or whatever. And one of my kids, unbeknownst to me, was like working in the city and was delivering the mail. And he came to like drop off the mail, and I was like, "Oh my God, I know that kid." And all of a sudden he like runs and jumps over the little thing, and it's like, "Mr. Rich!" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you got it, you're doing this." Because it was a neighborhood where people don't get out.
Yeah.
And I totally cried. As soon as he left, I cried. Because I was so
It's hard not
excited.
to, right? Because it's so rewarding. I mean,
Yeah.
right? It's priceless,
Exactly.
that commercial says, man.
Well,
When you see the success stories, I remember this
It's
other gentleman.
so much of the time it's theory. In a lot of times, right? You go give your talks to a bunch of kids, and you hope somebody hears it and somebody does something with it, and it's not enough that you actually see the results. So when you have those moments, it's very emotional. Yeah.
It is, man. It is. I was remembering this other gentleman who was also wheelchair bound. And, we talked, and he's like, man, prior to me meeting you, man, I mean, I really thought my life was over. I didn't know that people with, heart injury could still have a productive life, still live their life to the fullest. And when you came into my room and presented the program that you were working with at the time, and just the way that you carry yourself, your dress, your dress code. I mean, I told my mother, like, man, dude, this guy came in, just inspired me in the sense that he gave me hope that, yeah, I have a disability, but I know my disability is not going to define me now because of this individual that came in, and it just wasn't me. It was people after that also that followed, right?
Yeah.
Other people with disabilities were coming in, talking to him about different life choices, opportunities that are out there now for us. He said, I mean, just, thank you, like, thank you for being you. And thank you for, I mean, it was just perfect timing when you came into my room, man. Because again, I thought my life was over, I mean, I used to work prior to, getting hurt. So, I mean, again, I thought my life was over, but thanks to you and the other people that came after you, just is not,
It was just beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which is amazing because now all your late night talks while you were sitting in the hole was like, okay,
Right.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. You want to point upstairs and be like, do you see me?
Right.
For your own self, right?
Yeah, you're so right about that. Moments like that when I do reflect to the old me of, I mean, I can't even believe that was me, it's just because of two different lives, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I came from that. I mean,
Evolution. It's
yeah,
amazing.
I'm blessed. I was blessed that I was raised in the way that I was raised and grew up. I mean, to some extent, grateful the way that I grew up, right? Even though, I mean, choices were mine. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I can't blame my community that I was a gang member because there was no choices. I mean, I chose that.
Yeah.
Knowing certain consequences of that lifestyle, I still chose that. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you're able to outgrow that and come out at the end of that tunnel a better man.
That's amazing.
Well, an organization like Rancho doesn't have, the longevity and the successes and all of that without, thinking ahead. So are there new projects you're working on? Any innovations that are coming down the road?
Yeah, there's always new things happening. I mean, at least for us right now, what we're trying to do is just secure more funding for our program to make sure we're here for the next 5 years, hopefully. And then obviously, other projects that are coming along, again, to just continue to improve our quality of lives. Rancho Research has been here on Rancho grounds since 1956. And it was created for that reason, to improve people's lives with disabilities here at Rancho. Rancho itself has been here since 1850. It was the land was donated to Rancho for the people that were actually that were most in need back in those days, which was the indigenous people here at Rancho of LA County at that time, and it used to be called the Poor Farm actually back in those days.
Okay.
But yeah, it was created for that alone, man, for people like us, to have a place to rehab and have a place to grow, and change our lives around.
Awesome.
Amazing.
So let's give you one last, word. If there's somebody listening to this episode of Walk and Roll Live, newly injured, what would you say to them?
Stay open-minded. Do not close yourself, in. stay open-minded, allow people to help you. There's nothing wrong with accepting help, that's the worst thing you could do if you just lock yourself in and give up, because then you become the thing that you fear the most, somebody with a true disability, right?
Yeah.
But if you stay open-minded and you let yourself grow, but other people that want to teach you a better way, then you're going to be a better person and you'll be able to pay that forward. Life ain't over just because you have a disability. You're still the same individual, Yeah. But now you have a chance to pursue maybe something that you were afraid of pursuing prior to getting hurt.
Yeah.
You have a, like you said, Doug, a little while ago, you have a new beginning. You have a reset button, start over.
I know, we've had too many guests have said, that it's a moment in their life that may have saved their life, especially, if you're the victim of a gunshot wound and it causes your disability and you're going down a path that maybe you wouldn't have survived, right? If you kept going and they look back at this as this might have saved my life.
It did. I mean, for me, I believe it did, man. I won't go as far as saying that this is the best thing that happened to me because it is not. I think
that's pretty far.
The things that happened after that were some of the best things that happened to me, but the disability alone was not. But the disability opened doors to the life that I'm creating now. I'm in control of that, not the other way around.
We appreciate you coming on, taking some time to share the story, your story, and also with Rancho Los Amigos. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you both.
Doug Vincent has always had a passion for life and a heart for people. A polio survivor since infancy, he walked with braces and crutches for over 50 years before transitioning to a wheelchair. Through it all, Doug's spirit only grew stronger. Today, he hosts Walk and Roll Live, a podcast built on lived experience, empathy, and hope. Each week, Doug amplifies voices from the disability community, reminding us all that every story matters. Disability stories. Life limitless.
From the UGYAR Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
All right, let's hear it one more time for Juan Garibay. Very nice, very nice. All right, thank you, Juan, for coming on. We appreciate it, Juan, from Rancho Los Amigos. All right, what did you think? Let me guess. You loved it?
So I love this story. You know me. I say I love every story, but I love this story because it's a rising from the ashes to a change. You know what I mean? It's a split in your universe. It's a total life shift, but he's just done so many amazing things. And if you took his first story, you would say, oh no, that man can't become this man that we're talking to. And it's tremendous to see what he has done and become. And because I worked in the inner city, I've watched how important it is to have people from that position speak to the younger generations about opportunity and possibility. So especially taking people who are in, Rancho or whatever, and have already been like, well, this is over. First of all, in the beginning of their life, they may not have felt they had much life beyond, their criminal choices, I guess, right? Yep. And then this happened, so might as well shut the book and give it up. And I love that he's just, what do you do with your
and you can make the case for it. It only got tougher. Whatever 100%. Their life, right? Whatever their life was, like I say, we're not going to bet on them for it to go to a great place,
For sure.
And then they get a setback like that.
Yeah.
And I've heard the stories a number of times from people in that situation. That's all they know. They go back to the street.
100%.
Yeah. So when they get out of that, I really, really admire the courage and.
Oh, yeah. That's blood, sweat, tears, fingernails, no sleep. That's, many of us are like, how am I going to come back from this little thing? But to truly step over it and step into something amazing, and then be minded that you want to continue to pull that rope for the next people under you. Yeah.
You hear the phrase, there's no lesson learned, an experience, something you've experienced yourself. But, if you can hear stories like that, and kind of shortcut it and live by somebody else's experiences.
100%.
And know that the possibilities for you to turn your life around are there.
Oh, for
with
sure.
some hard work, right? And a mind shift. Yeah. So,
well, and also when you take people from a street environment, they don't like posers who are like, let me tell you about the streets, but you've never been on the streets.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here you're taking somebody who can speak the language, lived the life, had consequences of the life. Like he's reading his own book to them versus let me give you a piece of advice about something I really know nothing about, but I watched on TV.
And I think for a lot of people, no matter what your situation is, a lot of that is, you're making excuses in your own mind for where you're at. Mm-hmm. But when you see somebody like that, it kind of runs you out of excuses.
Yeah.
The only thing that's different between you and him is getting the work done.
Cut off your excuse. Yeah. It's a game of poker, and who has the better hand? Neither is going to win, but he's going to sit with you until you figure out that there's no winner.
So that's a long way of saying thank you for coming on, Juan.
Right? Thanks, Juan. Can you tell we liked you? Maybe.
So let us know if you'd like to be on, or if you know somebody that you've witnessed changing their lives like that, or an organization that is helping people, change their lives like that. We'd love to have them on and share the story here on Walk and Roll Live. And any resources we can help with, we do as much as we can to get them up there. But if you know something that we don't know, we'll put it up there. Or if you're looking for something and haven't been able to find it, let us know. We might be able to do that and get it up there so we can share it with everybody. All right. And next week we have Vivian M.
Okay. We do.
That's all we know. No, I met her at Abilities Expo, and she was hanging out with Live to Roll, that podcast, and got to talking to her, and I realized, which is no big surprise because I'm an old man, and she's I think in her early 20s, and so she's grown up in this whole world with social media and all that. So got to talking with her, and I could tell she knew all kinds of stuff, more than me.
Right. You're like, hey, we need to be friends.
Yeah. So she's helping us out. So we thought we'd have her on for an interview too. Another kind of a twofer, we'll find out about that and get her whole story. And we'll do that next week right here.
Yeah.
All right. Anything?
So you should subscribe, do all the things.
Thank you.
To stay in touch.
Thank you. That reminds me of something.
Yes.
Yes. We don't talk about it too much here, but we also have, I talk about the website and all of our social media. We got the TikTok that we've had for a couple of months now, but we do have a YouTube channel, and that's been out there a long time, and that might be a preferred way of listening for somebody. So check it out, Walk and Roll Live on YouTube, and subscribe, and share, and turn on the little bell, and do all that for us, would you?
Ding dong, and yay! Make us
comment.
feel like we're not talking to ourselves.
Yes, we don't get a lot of comments, so whatever it is, just doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing, but just a simple line or two. We'd love to hear from you. All right.
One more thing.
Yes.
Is that Eric, your former co-host, is getting married this week.
That's right. Thank you again. Yes.
So, Eric, we're thinking of you. We're proud of you. Congratulations. All those things. Felicitations.
All right. So I will report on that next week.
Yes.
When I get back, we're heading over there to watch them make each other legal or whatever.
For tying the knot.
Yeah, tying the knot. All right. Awesome. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it very, very much. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, along with Addie Rich from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.
Walk and Roll Live.